Welcome to the Mindful Fit Pro podcast, where fitness professionals learn how to strengthen not just bodies, but minds as well. In this podcast, we chat about all things mindfulness, mental wellness, and the latest in psychological research. Welcome back to the Mindful Fit Pro podcast, and welcome to all the new instructors out there that are listening for the very first time. I'm your host, Shelly. I'm the founder of the Mindful Fit Pro, and I want to first start by saying how much I appreciate your support of the podcast so far, and I am really excited to bring you another great episode. We are well into a new year, and in 2024, the Mindful Fit Pro podcast has really set its intentions on empowering fitness instructors to thrive in their careers and pour back into themselves so that you can do what you do best. Change lives physically and mentally. I have some exceptional guests lined up for this year, and we're kicking off our very first episode of 2024 with a true gem in the industry, someone who shares my passion for helping fitness instructors shine. I had the chance to talk with Shay from Fitness Career Mastery and discuss a topic that's, I think, really crucial for fitness professionals, both instructors and personal trainers, to really understand. And that topic is burnout. Burnout is more than just a feeling of being stressed or tired. It's a state of emotional, physical, mental exhaustion, and it's caused by prolonged stress, which you're probably very familiar with as a fitness instructor. In the fitness industry, burnout is a really common challenge that a lot of instructors that I've worked with have faced, and I myself have faced. And really, when you think about the demands of our job, teaching back-to-back classes, teaching early in the morning, and then spreading out your schedule so that you're ending classes late at night, constantly pouring all of your energy into your clients, maybe feeling the need to recreate classes that are fresh and brand new every time you teach, staying up to date with the latest research and trends, and going through continuing education, and all of this while trying to maintain your own health. It can really take a toll. So, how do you recognize when you're experiencing burnout, and what do you do to protect your peace? These are just a few of the things that Shay and I discuss in today's episode. So, without further ado, let's begin. Welcome, Shay, to the Mindful Fit Pro podcast. I'm so excited to have you as my first guest on the podcast. I know
I'm your first guest.
You're my very first guest. And we're going to be talking about a really important topic today that was inspired by a post that you shared on Instagram a while back about burnout. I know myself, I have experienced that. And your post really resonated with me because I think it hits home for a lot of instructors, and we start to really doubt ourselves when we get to that place of burnout. So I would love to hear your perspective today on what we can do as fitness instructors to kind of protect ourselves from that. But first, let's get to know you a little bit more. So you are one of the faces behind Fitness Career Mastery with your husband, and you run the kind of more Group X experience side of things. So I'd love to hear how that process started, because that just seems incredible to be able to do that with your husband, run your own business together, and you're both in fitness. It just seems so cool.
First of all, what an honor to be here and be your first guest. I love that. Yes. Hi, my name is Shay, and I've been working in the fitness industry for over 15 years. And this is going to age me, but I came into fitness very late. I didn't really start until like 26, 27. Like I had never been to a group fitness class before that. I had joined a gym once. I think I had a 3-year membership for like a really good deal, and I probably went 8 times, and I had a panic attack every single time I walked into the gym. I like didn't know what to do. And I wasn't considered athletic by any means, but I did grow up as a dancer. I had a great career as an actor and choreographer in New York City for a good decade. I also have worked as a producer, as a writer. I've been in commercials, and I've done like produced documentaries and all kinds of things. So I had a very varied career in the performing arts and film industry. And I joined this 90-day test group for Beachbody, which is now Body.
Mhm.
It was basically a weight loss group. It was really intense. I made really good friends. I lost 22 pounds, which was like the least exciting thing about all of that, but I really fell in love with it. And I tried to juggle, working at a gym as a job and then being an actress. And I was like, I really can't do both of these things. One of them is like, um, I was doing a lot of theater. Like I'm up late at night and then I have to get up early to be at the gym. And I was like, I can't do this. So I was like, I'm going to try fitness for 1 year and see what happens. And I went all in. And this was like in 2008, 2009. It was the right time. Like the boutique fitness industry was booming. So I was like, right time, right place, the right thing. And I put everything I had into it. And like within 6 months of getting my first teaching job, because I worked at a front desk first and I sprayed shoes at a cycling studio, and did all of the cleaned yoga mats and did all of the unattractive things for a long time. And 6 months after getting my first teaching job, I was named like New York's hottest new fitness trainer. It's like, what? And I was like, okay, maybe I'm good at this. And that boosted my confidence, obviously. And then I worked for a really big company. So I ended up being asked to join the creative team. And then I worked for them as a recruiter. I did not like that job. So then they moved me into like a master trainer position. And then I ended up managing uh, the training process for like 8 or 9 gyms or locations on the East Coast and Dubai. And that's how I met my husband, Barry. He was teaching at the location in Dubai, and we just became really fast friends and stayed in touch for a really long time. And I eventually wanted to branch off and do my own thing. I was working with some fitness products, helping to like design the products, which was really fun. And then I became the face of a brand and I was writing for magazines and, doing some fitness modeling. And I was like, I want to do something on my own, So I moved back to LA actually. And I started doing these like little consulting gigs, taking everything that I learned from a big fitness corporation and giving it to the smaller boutiques. And I just felt like it was really valuable information that shouldn't be held behind closed doors. Like I really wanted to teach people how to create an amazing experience. I think coming from a performance background, I just saw an opportunity there. Like I speak to my own experience. Like working out is not fun when you first start. I say this all the time. It's not fun until you get good at it, right? And then once you start getting good at it, like anything, you want to do it more. And then you seek out better opportunities, better experiences, right? And you're willing to play and take risks. And then you can kind of find your home and then it takes off from there. But that first part feels like a slog. It feels like a chore. And that's why so many people don't want to do it. And I was like, wait a second. If we could make a group fitness class feel more like a theatrical experience or a concert or a comedy show or anything that people willingly show up for, then we can get them hooked on it. Like, let's start from there first instead of talking about all the benefits of weight loss and gaining strength and all that stuff. Like, let's just show them that we can have a good time taking care of ourselves. And then the other stuff will come.
Yeah.
So that's really what I focus on. And Barry, who was my friend for many years, we worked internationally together and accidentally fell in love. Just perfect time. We were both single. And he had a podcast called Fitness Career Mastery Podcast. And I was doing this consulting like all over the place. And I said, what are you going to do with this podcast? Like, I've got a whole business and this is a great marketing tool. Like, can we team up? And we tried it. And we merged our venture. Barry didn't really have a business, but I merged my business with the podcast and what Barry was doing. And then we got married and now we do everything together. So as you said, Barry really works with fitness studios on like brand messaging, brand strategy and messaging. And then I work with studio owners and instructors on the experience design.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. What
Yeah.
an incredible journey to going from your experience in acting. I'm sure that plays like a huge part in how you're helping instructors
Yeah.
kind of find their their persona as
Yeah.
fitness instructors. And I think it's incredible work what you're doing, focusing on the experience of the workout, because that's what makes us fall in love
Yeah.
with working out. It's not like, oh, I lost this amount of weight, or like I'm incredibly sore the next day. Like those aren't the parts we fall in love with. It's the friends that we make, the like
That's
connections
right.
that we have with the instructors. And so it's really cool that you're creating this place for other instructors to go and learn all this really, really valuable stuff.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
My acting professors are really proud, actually,
Oh,
when they see what I'm doing. They're like, I'm so glad that you're using everything you learned, you know?
that's
Wish we could see you on stage, but so glad you're using everything you learned.
you're still
Uh,
using what they taught you.
yeah, I am. Yeah.
So within that incredible journey, I'm sure there were points that maybe you faced burnout.
Hmm.
Do you want to speak to that at all? Kind of what
Yeah.
your personal experience with burnout has
You
been.
know, I think actors and fitness instructors have something in common in that anybody who really desires to get up in front of a group of people usually have some form of people pleasing, overachieving,
Mhm.
right? Wanting to help others, wanting to save others, wanting to do good, wanting to be seen and loved and supported for the work they do supporting other people. And because of that, I think that they are easily exploited. Actors and instructors can be exploited by, the higher powers that be sometimes, and even by ourselves, right? We give so much, and it's really easy to dismiss some of the side effects and symptoms of burnout as, oh, that's just part of the job. Vocal fry is a huge one. You know, that really comes from overusing and misusing your vocal instrument. And I hear so many instructors, they're like, oh, I lost my voice again. It's par for the course. I'm like, no, it isn't. You need vocal training and support. You need to learn how to support your voice. And you also need proper rest and recovery and hydration and all of the other things, because your voice, just like your body, is a really important instrument for you to do your job well. And there have been many, many cases. So because of that, there have been many, many cases where I have been faced with burnout. Um, at the company that I mentioned, I taught 15 classes a week, sometimes in 2 or 3 locations a day. Um, and it's East Coast, so sometimes different states in one day, which just sounds crazy to me now. I would never, ever, ever put myself in that situation. But I was young and hungry and passionate, and I wanted to impress my superiors, and I wanted to be successful in my career, and I wanted to make my rent. And I didn't want to have to find another job to make my rent. I wanted this to be my career. And so I just threw myself into it. And I remember one summer, I was teaching 25 classes a week. I had picked up every sub I could, and it was like this sick pleasure for me. It was like this challenge, or like this badge of achievement, that I could teach 25 classes in a week. And after 3 or 4 weeks of that over the summer, I was just completely exhausted. I had vocal fry. I remember had this shooting pain up the left side of my neck, which is now my number one sign that I'm overdoing it. It comes back. Like in my work, even now, if I have overextended myself, the whole left side of my neck goes, can't turn your head, gonna have to take a rest. Like your body tells you when it's time to slow down. Um, and I had like no social life. I couldn't wait to go to bed at the end of the day. And my manager had even like acknowledged, they're like, wow, Shay taught 25 classes a week for like 4 weeks. But nobody gave me any recognition for that achievement. It's not like I got a pay raise or something. And and then there was no like support for my recovery. When I asked for time off after that, it was like, no, you can't just ask for time off 3 days before you need time off, or 24 hours before you need time off. I remember I had scheduled like a little trip to Florida. This was in the wintertime after another period of like really doing a lot of work. I just booked myself a weekend in Florida and I asked for the time off. And like I flew down there with my boyfriend. And when I came back, the managers were like, oh, so you said you were sick, but you were playing on the beach in Florida. And I said, no, I needed sunshine and rest. I knew that the only way that I could get it was if I took myself out of the city, took myself away from the thing that I can't say no to, and just did nothing. And I was like judged for doing something for my own self-care. And I think that was really the first time I was like, this is really, really, really a problem that nobody is monitoring this. Nobody on my team was saying like, okay, we got to put a cap on how many classes that you can teach. And none of the instructors are really doing it for themselves either.
It's
It's a,
incredibly unfortunate. Yeah.
yeah,
It's such a common experience. Like one teaching back to back to back is almost it's encouraged and at some places expected. And
yes,
once you do that, there's no like, oh, kudos or thank you so much for your support. It's like, okay, can you do that next month? Can we add another class to your
yeah.
schedule? Can we do more, 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 more?
Mhm.
And we're in this for health and wellness, but nobody's looking at the instructors' mental health, doing all that physical health, right? That leads to
Yeah.
injury, not just vocal fry, but I know instructors that have injured themselves and hurt their backs working
Mhm.
so much. And then, the whole studio is at a loss because that instructor who teaches a huge bulk of classes
Yep.
needs to take time off. And yeah.
And then they're scrambling. And it's like, actually, if you encouraged that instructor to take a day or two off, if you encourage them to decrease their class load, if you offered options for rest and recovery, partnering with a physical therapist, partnering with a wellness spa so that your staff could get a good deal on, because fitness instructors typically don't have health insurance, right? And we don't make that much money. And so we're going out of pocket for that. And so that's another reason. It's like, oh, I don't have money for that. I don't have time for that. And this is, again, just part of my job. But if employers found a way to better support the instructors, that this would be one way of mitigating burnout. But I also think it's important to note that, like, I just read an article in the Times that says, like, burnout is defined, um, it's not a medical condition. It's a manifestation of chronic, unmitigated stress,
Mm.
right? So it's not like you may have symptoms, right, that become medical issues, but the burnout itself is not that. And the World Health Organization describes burnout as a workplace phenomenon that is characterized by feelings of exhaustion, cynicism, and reduced efficacy. And I found that really interesting because I think sometimes we use that word in life. We're just like, oh, I'm so burnt out. But and I'm not saying I'm not an expert. I'm not saying that that can't happen, but typically it really does come from the workplace or from your job and how you're mitigating the stress from that job and what you're offloading, right? Because we take on so much. Like, what are you doing to offload that stress? Because I think a lot of the advice that we hear is to do something for yourself, right? And then it's like, okay, well, but I'm already doing so much. Like, you should go for a walk. You should do meditation. You should, do whatever, red light therapy. You should do this. You should do that. And it's like, okay, well, but how come I have to do more to feel better? It's like a lot of the things I want to talk about today are like, what can we offload, right? What can we reduce to feel better instead of feeling like we have to adopt this epic morning routine or something? Like when I see that as a mom and a business owner now, I'm like, I do not have time to get up
No.
and journal and meditate and exercise and sit in the sun and drink my whatever the drink it is we're talking about, right? I don't have time for that. I actually need to do less and I need to be better at setting boundaries, right? At managing the stress and setting up expectations so that we can avoid the burnout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear your thoughts because I know we've talked a little bit about this with people pleasing, and I have
Mm,
ideas as to why we burn out as instructors,
mm,
and experience, compassion fatigue too, because
Yes.
giving, and then not giving to ourselves
Mhm.
or allowing that space for ourselves by taking things off our to-do list. But what do you think is unique about the fitness industry or about
Mm.
fitness instructors themselves that makes burnout such a common experience?
I think so many of the things that we just mentioned, like just the expectation that we're Energizer bunnies. But I would say the first thing here, I'll put it in the context of something that you can do, like a sort of mindset practice, is to separate yourself from your performance. I think a lot of us feel that we're responsible for our clients, we're responsible for their results, and we aren't, particularly in group fitness. You are not responsible for getting your clients' results. That's their responsibility. It's your responsibility to create the environment within which they are able to reach their goals and get results. And also, what you do or do not do, what you're good at or not good at as an instructor has absolutely no bearing on your worth, right, as a human being. And I know because I have walked in these shoes for a really long time, as someone who finds value in productivity and performance, right? It's very easy to become enmeshed in that. And like the first thing that you can do is separate yourself from your performance. So if the mantra is, it is not my responsibility to save my clients, or it's not my responsibility to get them results, you want to do your best to stay in a place where the joy comes from the activity itself, the activity of teaching, not in the results of teaching. So not in the results that you get for your clients, but also not from the positive feedback, the compliments, and the accolades that you get from your clients and peers for being like an awesome fitness instructor. Like those are really nice, right? But the only thing that you can really do is control the activity. You can't really control the result, right? So if we focus, and this is one of the things I teach, if you just focus on creating an exceptional experience and you take pride and joy in the activity itself, and it's like, you don't care what so-and-so thinks about you, right? Or like you mess up that day, you don't, totally internalize that and make it about you. It's a thing that you do, right? And I think that's like the number one piece of advice that I could give to all of the people pleasers and overachievers and the ones that want to like save the world through fitness is you have to separate yourself from your performance.
Yeah, it's funny because it's what we share with our clients, right? Going out for
Yes,
that intrinsic motivation and doing it for the immediate rewards, and what you that feeling you get when you walk out of class, that comes from just the pure joy of teaching itself,
that's
or
right.
for our clients the pure joy of moving their bodies.
Yeah,
But we don't take our own medicine
yeah.
very well.
Right? The joy of showing up, of moving to music, of being with other like-minded people that are sharing in the journey towards your goals, right? Everybody's goals are a little bit different, but we're all in it, doing it together, and creating this sense of community and belonging are like fundamental needs as a human being.
Yeah.
And if you can just like lean into that, I think it really takes the pressure off of all of the other things that we think we're supposed to be or do. Yeah.
So this is all great so far. Separating yourself from your performance
Hmm.
is like top of the list, but what
Yeah.
else can instructors do to kind of save themselves from burnout and
Uh,
protect their peace?
really learn how to set healthy boundaries for yourself and do not be afraid to stand firm in those boundaries. So a really easy one we talked about at the beginning, teaching back to back to back, is setting boundaries on how many classes you can hold space for per day, per week, and per month. And that can change over time, right? So you may think now I could totally do 3 classes a day. You cannot do 3 classes a day, 7 days a week. I'm just gonna put that out there right now. But maybe right now you can do triples 3 days a week and maybe have 1 class 2 days a week, right? Maybe you can really do that. But then after 3 or 6 months, life changes, other responsibilities come on board, your values shift, like what's important to you at that moment, you need to be able, whether you work for yourself or your employer, you need to sit down with the person who's making the schedule and say, okay, we need to switch this up, right? I need to drop a class. And really being conscious of the fact that just because it's working for you now doesn't mean that it's going to work for you months from now or years from now. And it's okay to make the decision for yourself to do something different. And it's totally okay to try something and go, I think I can do this. And then go, okay, wait, I can't. I'm starting to feel the effects. And like, I think that's something important to talk about too. Like, what are some of the signs that you have overextended yourself? And we can talk about that in a second, but I think setting boundaries around class days and times, right? I am no good to anyone before 9 a.m. You don't want to take a class with me. I have no energy. I could care less about whether you do what I say or what I'm doing, because I am so angry that I am up and moving. I'm just not a morning person. That's never going to change. And sometimes particularly when you're first starting out, you kind of have to take what you can get, but you'll learn very quickly, you know? There's always that excitement. I got up at 4 a.m. for 2 years. I was living in Brooklyn to get into Manhattan, took a hour-long subway ride to get in to teach a 7 a.m. class.
Wow.
Wow, what a time. That was like just a different time in life where you would see like Rebecca Kennedy who's on Peloton now, and Noah Douglas Neiman, who was like at Barry's for a long time. Like all these fitness greats are like, Noah's like skateboarding down Fifth Avenue because there's no traffic at 5 a.m. and Rebecca's running over to teach at Barry's, and I'm running into my business, and so is over here. And we're all like, hi, at Starbucks because it's the only place open. Really, really just like cute time, very unique to New York. But I did that for 2 years until I realized that I was deeply unhappy with my productivity for the rest of the day and like just what my energy outputs were. And I was like, I don't think this is for me. And I asked, can you put me on some evening classes? Yes. And I'm like, well, I can't do the evening classes and the morning classes because I need 8 hours of sleep and I have to wake up at 4 a.m. to get here in the morning. So I had to set boundaries and say, if I teach late on a Tuesday, I cannot teach Wednesday morning. I need more rest so that I can be good for you, right? So that I show up for the clients and they can see that I love being there, right? And we have a good experience and they come back. If you put me on a 7 a.m. after I was there the night before, you're not going to get a good experience. And those people probably aren't going to sign up for that class again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you just have to learn to do that. And then when you're at a point where you have the agency to make that decision, you need to communicate that. I think also around what classes, setting boundaries around what classes you're willing to teach in regards to modality or program format or even fitness level. I see so many posts on Facebook from fitness instructors who are asked to pick up a silver sneakers class at their gym or a boot camp class or a boxing class. And they have never taught it before. And so they're asking the community, can you give me a program? Can you give me a playlist? How do I teach it? How do I put this class together? I'm like, oh my goodness, this stems from a larger issue and is an indicator that your powers that be, your employer, your manager, your studio or gym, do not value you and the work that you put into creating a class for their clients, nor do they truly value the client experience, or else they would never put you in that situation. You should never, ever, ever teach a class that you aren't certified in or properly trained in.
Yeah.
And you should never, ever walk into a room unless you feel confident that you can command the room and provide exceptional service and care for your clients without overextending yourself, right? Because that right there, those things, all of them, teaching too many classes, teaching at the wrong time on the wrong day, like not having enough rest and recovery, teaching a class that you do not feel confident in is going to you're totally going to overextend yourself. You're going way beyond your current capacity. It takes a lot of physical and emotional and mental energy and space this triggers imposter syndrome, and that eventually leads to those feelings of resentment and fatigue. And then you're like cynical about your job, and that's the surefire path to burnout. That was a lot, but like that, you have to set boundaries. Like, who am I? Who am I for? What is my skill set? What am I good at? And how can I best deliver what it is that I do?
Yeah.
Right? You have to really think about those things and put yourself in a position like you are an expert. Even if you're just starting out, you have to put yourself in the mindset of being the expert and like the master of how you spend your time as a fitness instructor. It's so important. And I think a lot of us overlook that. It goes back to the people pleasing, and then being exploited because of that.
Yeah. So I'm curious too from the other side because I have experience being the one who's helping create the schedule and
Mhm.
managing members' requests of, I really want this class at 6 a.m. and then
Yep.
trying to find an instructor who wants to teach that early, can teach that format. What guidance do you have for studio managers, supervisors,
Mhm.
lead instructors to help support their
Yeah.
team and prevent burnout by not having one these expectations,
Mhm.
right? What else can they do?
I have a question for you. How many times have you thrown like a brand new 6 a.m. class on the schedule because all of the clients wanted it and it was like immediately full?
Oh, no, never.
Never. Sometimes they never show up. So
Exactly.
the answer to that question for any business owner or the person managing the schedule is you never just put a class on the schedule because the clients want it.
Mhm.
You also are the expert and a position of authority. And it's your job to, yes, to serve them, but it's not your job to cater to them. Like, you tell them, this is when we have classes and this is who teaches them because this is what we've designed for you. So, but if you do get a lot of people saying, we really want, this 6 a.m. Zumba class, and you don't have anybody who can currently fill that spot, you wait until you can find that person. You don't just go to your current team and say, who's willing to do 6 a.m. Zumba, who like has not been trained, who it's not within their bandwidth energetically. Like, if they already have a full schedule, like, be mindful if you see the person is teaching 12 classes already. And I think a lot of people think it's like, well, that's on them. They want to take it, right? But as a leader, it's your responsibility to guide and care for your team in the same way that it's in the instructor's job to guide and care for their clients. It comes from top down. When the people at the top care deeply about their team, the team is able to care deeply about the clients. You get better feedback, you get better results, you get less churn, right? So then you have to take a look at your entire business model and go, okay, do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the ability right now to recruit, to find somebody who can teach that 6 a.m. Zumba class? When can we have interviews or auditions, right? Is it within our budget to bring somebody else on our salary, or like to bring somebody else on our payroll? And um, and can we test this out, right? So like, it feels easier to just pull within your own team, but if nobody's there, and that's the other thing, then you have to give it time. If you want to pull internally, then we have to prepare to give the best experience. You don't just say, hey, you're going to teach next Wednesday. You tell the clients, great, I hear you. I'm going to do everything I can. It's going to take, if it happens, it's going to take a few weeks or maybe in a few months, but I hear you. And you can explore that. But I see so many people making these, you're talking about a sub, right? But you also mentioned like adding a 6 a.m. class.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing for subs, really getting to know your team and understanding like who's right for what class time on what day and what does their schedule like. Course, of course, there are going to be times where you're strapped and somebody is going to have to pick up that slack, right? I'll do it. I'll take that class. But then can you find a way, first of all, to recognize them and appreciate them? Like, hey, give them a cup of coffee. Thank you so much for picking up that class. I really appreciate it. Here's a Starbucks card. So easy. Also, do you need a day off next week because you were working extra?
Yeah.
Let somebody else pick up their class, you know? And the clients see that and they feel it. I can tell you with absolute certainty that my clients knew when I was running myself ragged and they were concerned about me. And that's a reflection on the business and the brand, not me, because they know I'm an employee, right? So like, why are they letting her do this, right? And her class, like the experience is not so great. She's been playing the same playlist for 2 weeks because she doesn't have time to make a new one, right? They know. And when they see that the team is well taken care of, then that just uh, like reinforces their trust
Mhm.
in the whole brand.
Definitely. That
Yeah.
trickle down of support is so important. That places
Yeah.
that I've taught in the past that I've enjoyed teaching the most, I've felt that support, right? I've gotten
Yeah.
the, every semester that we change schedules, I get that call or that email, even if it's just that of like, what do you want to teach this
Yeah.
semester?
Yeah.
What are you available to teach, instead of this expectation that, well, you're trained in 10 million things, so you should teach 10 million things in one week.
Right.
Just, it's not possible.
Yeah. It's task switching too. We were talking about this before we hit record.
Yeah.
Teaching all those different modalities. Like each one has its own thing. You've got to shift back and forth from strength training to cycling to bar to this, and like the way that you cue and the type of playlist you make and just the energy and the vibe of the class. Like that in itself takes so much mental and emotional and physical energy.
Yeah.
You have to really think about that.
Oh, 100%. And it's a
Yeah.
little bit of like an art to find as an instructor what is your like perfect combo, right?
Yeah.
So I know like myself, I teach right now currently reformer Pilates and TRX class, and I have to do TRX first. I can't do reformer Pilates first.
That's right.
Like that little bit of like a wind down. Otherwise, I'm going home totally wired and like listening to like pump
Yes.
up jams on the way home, and it's like 9 o'clock at night.
Yes. I taught at a studio. We had strength and cycling. And I was like, I cannot teach a strength class after a cycling class. I am such a sweaty mess. I am breathless. I've given all my energy. And then like, I just feel gross standing because I don't have to do the workout in the strength room, right? It was like a circuit. So I actually prefer to do the calmer one first,
Yeah.
right? So I can stay put together. I can manage control the room. And then I could go into cycling and just go balls to the wall and like get all sweaty and like go home and take a shower, right? So like you have to find the way that works for you again so that you make it sustainable.
So we've covered so much good advice.
Yeah.
My next question for you is, we've talked about how to prevent burnout
Hmm.
from both sides, from, management side and then as an instructor. But what about if you're in the depths of it right now? What advice
Mm.
for those instructors that are listening that are like, yep, 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 this is me right now?
The first thing I want to say is like to prioritize rest and recovery. Like you might need to step away and that could feel really scary, but I also know that that doesn't fix the root of the problem, right? Like so all of these things that we feel that we're seeing are symptoms of a deeper issue that actually has nothing to do with the burnout. Like I said, it's unmitigated stress, it's overextending yourself, it's not being valued, appreciated, and challenged. But if you can, first and foremost, just press pause. Ask for, even if it's one day, ask for one day off or 2 days off, or if you can afford it, take a full week. And in that week, there's a couple of things that you can do for yourself. You can do nothing. It's a good start to just, like I said at the beginning, you don't have to do more. Just do nothing. Rest, sleep, journal, write down like really what you're feeling, write down your days and your weeks, like look at your schedule. Like if you're feeling, so you're feeling burnt out, right? Why? See if you can see those factors. What are the other symptoms that you're seeing? Like, I'll take a second to talk about some of the things that happen when you're burnt out. You start missing deadlines. And for an instructor, that means you're rolling into class like at the last possible second before you have to teach. You're not spending time creating new programs and playlists. You're just pulling up the old stuff. Ooh, I've been there so many times. I'm like, I cannot even bother. I will just switch 3 songs and nobody will know. And such a good actress, right? I'll just show up and give whatever. Like, you've lost the joy in the creation part of what you do. Sometimes you have insomnia, can't go to bed after teaching. Like you said, you're ramped up after teaching, but you cannot find a way to come down. Sometimes you just want to sleep. You're just looking, you just want to get through it. So if you're having those thoughts of like, I just want to get through it. And then of course there's all the physical symptoms. There's vocal fry, there's injury, there's soreness, there's extreme fatigue. And I think you can't really clock those accurately until you step away from it. Like, really spending time and looking at, like, on that day off, how do you feel? Do you have more energy because you don't have to be at work? Are you excited to go out and do something fun? Or has it gotten like so dark that you just want to stay in bed? You're like bed rotting all day long. And just really, I think awareness is the first step. And then of course, for me, in addition to basic self-care, and it doesn't have to be a big thing, take a bath, it does not have to cost money. It does not have to be this big thing. Is making sure that I'm doing something else that I really enjoy. Going to the movies, having lunch with a friend, going to Disneyland, like whatever it is that fills your cup. And then you get back to that feeling of joy. And for me, what it does is it inspires me. I'm like, okay, I love how I feel at this dinner with my friends, or I love how I feel at this concert. How do I get back to that feeling, right? And just thinking about like what it is that brings you to your joy. I could tell you, it's having like agency and autonomy over your time and how you spend it. It's saying like, when I've had enough and I'm going to go rest. And we don't do that at work. We do it at life, right? And so this kind of leads into the things that I've already said, right? Separate yourself from the performance, create and set better boundaries and stick to them. And then some of the other tips that I would share very quickly would be to create systems for yourself, to make it easier to show up. I know so many instructors that are like recreating every single class, every single time they teach. They have no rhyme or you don't do this, do you?
I used to. It was expected that every class would be different. And,
Yes.
that can be as simple as changing the playlist or changing like one piece of equipment. But as a new instructor, I thought that meant starting from scratch every single time.
No,
And that's
no,
not
no,
possible.
no.
It's not conducive to learning either for our
N-
clients.
No, it's time consuming. It's mentally and emotionally draining. You're right. Your clients can't really track their progress because the workout is different all the time. There is value in repetition. There is value in templates and formats. And when you don't have that, you fall into this horrible trap where you are always trying to one up yourself, right? Like, I'm like, oh, that was so good. Now I got to do it better. That never ends. That never ends. That is, you are going to burn out so fast. You're going to get to a point where you're like, we're doing, we're spinning on our heads in class, right? Because I've got to like outdo myself. There's like absolutely no better feeling than being able to put together a class in 20 minutes or less that know is going to be good. Like, you are not questioning your choices. You're not questioning whether or not your clients will like it, because you've created something and then you kind of tweak it over time and you go, this is the way. There's always that messy process of trying to figure out what that looks like. That's normal, by the way. There's the messy process of like, how many classes do I teach? There's the messy process of like, what do I teach? What do I like? All of these things we talk. That's normal. You have to go through the mess. But once you go through the mess, you don't keep doing the mess. Don't keep doing the mess. That's what I'm seeing. Everybody's behaving as if they just started.
Yeah.
And every master has a method. They have a template that allows them to be creative. I always say, constraints boost creativity, right? If I have guardrails on, I know what I'm working in, and then I don't overextend myself. And it's one of the ways to manage your time, to help you set boundaries for yourself, and also guarantee that you're providing exceptional service to your clients, and you don't have to think about it because you're like, this is a thing that works, and then you get to show up and play. So getting back to the joy of the activity, because you're not worried about if this class that you spent 4 hours putting together last Sunday while you were drinking a glass of wine, and now it's Tuesday morning and you're questioning your choices, right? I've done that before. And you're like, I don't know if this is right for today, right? Like you have to know what you're doing. And then I would say the last piece on top of that is making sure that you're on a team with people that get it, right? I have found myself in positions where I'm giving much more than everybody else on my team, right? Bringing all that passion and creativity and fire, and everybody else is just kind of phoning it in. It's almost the opposite. Your energy becomes stagnant and you feel stuck. You're like, why am I trying so hard? And then especially when those people that are on autopilot, like their classes are full, and you're like, well, I'm recreating my class from scratch every single day, and I'm one-upping myself, and I'm not getting the same results, and I'm exhausted, and I care more than that person does. You know what I mean? It all ties in together. And like, obviously back to the leadership, making sure that those people support you, that they're providing those opportunities for challenge and growth, opportunities for deep rest and recovery. You're feeling taken care of. Like, it's okay. I know it's like scary, but it is like okay to jump ship. It's totally okay to outgrow your container and like seek out a new environment that like just fits better. And like, maybe it was the right place when you started. And now that you've grown and you've gone through that messy middle and you've figured out what it is you want to do, sometimes those people, because now you've made a big change, they're like, they don't like you setting boundaries. They don't like you showing up and saying that you can't teach at 7 a.m. anymore. And you go, oh, poor me. I have to do it. And that's just not true. It's not always so easy, but like, take the risk, and find the place that you really, really belong, where those like values are in alignment. That's actually, maybe I should put that as number one. Like, it's so important to find the place that you belong, because I think when you're fighting against everything, when there's a lot of friction, then burnout is inevitable, right? You feel like you're swimming upstream. Yeah.
Well, you
That was
have
a big answer.
no, that was great. Everything. I'm so glad I'm recording this because I'm like, I can go back and listen to this whenever I need it. Because I do need it too, right? I have been teaching for over 10 years now. I started teaching in college as an undergrad, started no idea that this is where I would be,
Yeah.
one day doing this as like a career. I just started teaching yoga, in the evenings, and have gone through my waves of burnout, both as an instructor and then running my own business too. So I'm very familiar with the process of overextending myself, giving too much. So this is incredible. I'm so happy that we got to have this conversation, because I think instructors, I know I myself, when I was a new instructor, needed to hear this. So what I'd love for you to share now is, because you have this incredible wisdom and then also this great place for instructors to go with the Group X Conservatory.
Yeah.
Can you share more about what that space looks like, what you offer, maybe what you have coming, if there's anything new you have coming?
Yeah. Okay. So fundamentally, what I teach are science-backed tools and strategies to help you create exceptional, immersive, epic, unforgettable, addictive, I often say concert-like fitness experiences that your clients will fall in love with. I demystify what it takes to create magic so that you can master it and create it over and over again with authenticity and consistency. Right? We've all been in those classes where they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what just happened in here. You've either taught them or you've taken them. And we kind of create them by instinct. But there are science-backed tools that you can employ that are used in other industries, right? To get you hooked on a film or pulled in at a concert, that you can use. that will just give you so much more confidence and also help you do a better job and do what I talked about at the beginning. Like, let's make this a fun, immersive place before we start digging into like the aesthetic results, right? Or the physical results. Like, let's make it enjoyable, right? If we're going to do this, let's make it fun, please. you know? And some of those things include, so I've built some courses, and one of them is instructor persona work, which really helps to guide you to make the right decisions for yourself and your career, like knowing who you are, right? Your core values, your skills, your interests, your point of view, your belief, all of these tools to help you discover what your superpowers are so that you do feel like you are the expert and you have agency to say, this is how I do things, my way within reason. And you can tell if you're in the right environment or not. Musicology and playlist mastery, like how to create systems to create playlists in less time, killer playlists in less time. Coaching and cueing, really mastering the art of instruction, coaching, and teaching. And those are 3 different skills, right? Being a good instructor, being a good coach, and being a good teacher are 3 separate skills that need to be worked on independently. And I think sometimes when we go through training, we go through these like boot camps, like 2-day trainings, and you're like supposed to do it all by the end. And it's like, it doesn't really work that way. I have a course on intention setting, how to deepen the experience for both yourself and your clients. Intention is what puts the wind in your sails and guides the ship. So you're not just like out at sea, grasping at straws, like what works? Does this hit right? Like give yourself some direction and give your client some direction. So it ticks all the boxes of like personal development and career education, creating systems so you can do your job better, and tools to enrich the experience you provide and sharpen your creative edge so you feel confident and you feel fulfilled and you feel successful and you make the right choices to have a long, healthy career in this industry, because it is possible. And the work that we do as instructors, the work that you do, if you're listening, is so important. It's so important. It should be taken seriously. And if anything that I'm teaching like helps move the needle in that direction where we are valued service providers, then I'm doing a good job. So all of that lives at the Group X Conservatory. It's basically a digital school. I do master classes every single month that you can sign up for. They're free for members in the conservatory. I do live Q&As where you can come and ask me questions, and I will give you mentorship. And then, like I said, there's 7 full-length courses in there, and they will soon be in the process of being accredited for CECs or CEUs. So that's happening this year. But really, it's like a community of like-minded people, and we're just learning tools to, sharpen the skills so that we can change more people's lives. Really, that's the end goal. It's like get more people moving, change more people's lives, feel happy and fulfilled in your job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I 100% will like definitely recommend your courses. I took your musicology course about making playlists, and ever since taking that course, like I just did a playlist for Valentine's Day, and so many members came up to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, can I follow this playlist on Spotify?" They loved it. So definitely highly, highly recommend your course.
Mission complete.
And
Great.
that's just one. So I can only imagine,
Yeah.
all the others I'm sure incredibly valuable too. The one on identifying your like authentic persona as instructor too. I had the opportunity to take thanks to you.
Yeah.
And that boosted my confidence. I wish I had taken that when I first started teaching.
Me too. That was the first course I ever created, and I did it because I wished that was something that people had taught me.
Yeah.
Like, who are you when you show up in this room? Because that's really what hinders performance, like not having that confidence in yourself and not knowing what direction you're taking your people in is so important. And I know you teach that as well. And we need more of that in the industry. I think if we started from there, It would be so much easier to decide like what certifications to teach, right? Or where to find a job.
Yeah.
We'd have more power. I would take the power back. I want to give the power back to the instructor.
I love it. It really helps you see like that magic. You would think it's just like this, it reminds me of like the Maybelline commercials. Like maybe she's born with it, like the magic that certain instructors that you put on a pedestal, you think that they're amazing, incredible, you look up to, you want to be like them, but everything they're doing can be taught. And so that's why I think this is so valuable. The Group X Conservatory is so valuable because you're teaching that to instructors. You're teaching.
I just have to put a pin in the fact that you brought up that Maybelline commercial because I made a post based on that. Like maybe she's born with it.
Maybe
Or
that's
maybe
like
she
that was
just,
in my head.
right? Or maybe she just worked really hard. I haven't put it up yet because I questioned myself. I was like, that was a commercial that was on when I was young and I am like an elder millennial. Like, is that going to resonate with everyone? But now that you said it, I'm going to put it up.
Definitely do it. It resonate with me because that's what I thought of. But
listen, some people are born with natural gifts, right? But that's not teachable, right? And the people that have it aren't usually able to distill it down into something that can be passed on. It's like, oh, just try to be like me. And it's like, no, I want to be like me.
yeah.
I want you to be like you. And one of my gifts is being able to distill what that is in like teachable bites, right? You can cultivate magnetic presence, radiant energy. You can learn skills to make what you do feel more magical and immersive. You can, right? It comes easier to some people than others, but it is a skill like anything else. And I think that's really important to note because I think sometimes we see people on social media and it's like, oh, well, they're just special. It's like, maybe, but you can be too. You might have to work a little harder, but then you'll have gone through the process and you know the tricks. Whereas that person is just like doing it. There's more power in that. There really is, right? Because you get to choose how you use it. You're being intentional with it, right? Both are fine. Both are great. I'm just saying that if like you're in that place where you're like, I want that, it's accessible to you. It really is. Yeah.
Great. Such a good reminder. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. I could talk about this for hours and
All
hours.
day. Me too.
Is there any last closing remarks that you have? Any last little pieces of advice or comments that you want to share with fitness instructors that are listening to this?
I think the first thing is like, you are the magic. The magic is you, right? But it's really important that you learn to harness that magic and that you polish it and refine it and that you're consistent with it and that you're delivering it in a way that is resonating with your people. You know, like any good magician practices tricks over and over and over again. And you're like, wow, like magic's not real, you guys. Right? Most of the magic that we see has been orchestrated for us. And all you got to do is learn the tricks and practice and practice and practice and practice. But as an instructor, like we are the magic, right? So you have to work on you. Like, don't forget to work on you. And as we talked about today, don't forget to take care of you. Because like without you, there is no group fitness, right? Like it's just, we need you. So there's that. And I think something that's been top of mind for me lately, and I think I'm in an echo chamber. Most people that I talk to subscribe to this, but we still see all this like junk on TikTok and on Instagram about like getting snatched and like all of this stuff. And we really, really need to stop marketing and talking about fitness as like a vehicle to change something about yourself, to like increase your worth as a human being. And we need to start creating spaces and environments and experiences where the change is inevitable. And that's our job, like in group fitness. Like just focus on creating the space and the experience for people to do the work that they need to do, right? And the change just happens.
What an important conversation. I am so glad that I had the chance to explore with Shay. Burnout can show up in various ways: feeling constantly drained, feeling fatigued, losing interest, or even losing your passion for teaching, becoming irritable or easily frustrated with clients, neglecting your own self-care, and even it might present as physical symptoms like headaches or insomnia. In today's episode, we got to dive deeper into the signs and symptoms of burnout and explored some strategies that fitness instructors can use to prevent burnout, and also what to do if you feel like you're currently in burnout. Before we close out today's episode, I want to remind you that you're not alone in this journey. If you know an instructor who's experiencing burnout, please share this episode with them and encourage them to seek help. I've included a link in the show notes to a resource page at themindfulfitpro.com. This is a great place to begin to look for professional support for stress, burnout, and many other mental health challenges. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Mindful Fit Pro podcast. I hope you found our discussion on burnout in the fitness industry both insightful and valuable. As fitness professionals, it's crucial that we prioritize our own mental and physical well-being. If you resonated with today's episode and want to dive deeper into mindfulness practices and strategies for finding balance as a fitness instructor, be sure to check out our previous episodes and explore some of the resources on the Mindful Fit Pro website. And if you're enjoying our podcast so far, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review so that way we can reach even more fitness professionals. Until next time, please take care of yourself and happy teaching.